What if I told you that these 40,000 strong elite Roman soldiers, trained under Caesar's law, marched thousands of kilometers east, survived deserts and defeated empires, only for 10,000 battle-hardened soldiers to disappear without a trace, deleted from history? Terrifying story of the lost Roman legion. If you thought the master plan I discussed in my Lucifer video was deep, wait until you see how the fog of war can hide an entire army for 2 millennia. Today, we aren't just looking at history, we are looking at a bloodline that survived the impossible. This story begins in 53 BC. Marcus Licinius Crassus is the wealthiest man in the Roman Republic. Rome was at its peak. Legions were unstoppable, and Rome was the envy of the world. Marcus had everything: land, gold, properties, slaves, women. He had it all except one thing: the military glory. He was jealous and wanted to be more powerful than Julius Caesar, who at the time was known as the Conqueror. He was also very greedy, as he ruthlessly plundered the wealth of people beneath him. He sought a significant triumph to secure his reputation as a great general, having been overshadowed by Pompey in previous conflicts. To achieve his ambitions, he led 7 legions, 40,000 men strong, into the heart of the Parthian Empire, modern-day Turkey and Iraq. This mission was born of ego and greed. He believed that the Romans would simply walk through the Parthians with ease. This arrogance blinded him until they met the Parthians. At the Battle of Carrhae, the Romans were surrounded by 10,000 Parthian horse archers. The Parthians didn't fight like Rome was expecting. The sky turned black, with the Parthians raining arrows from horseback, circling endlessly. Roman shields rattled like drums as arrows stormed down. The Romans, as elite military unit, quickly used a tortile formation, held for hours, but the heat was a slow executioner. Crassus was killed, and the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat to mock his greed. By nightfall, over 20,000 Romans died. 10,000 fled. But the math isn't adding up. What happened to the remaining 10,000? They were actually captured alive, and that's where history starts to whisper. Because these prisoners didn't appear in Parthian cities. They didn't return home either. Rome never saw them again. In the official records of the Senate, they were simply deleted. But you don't just delete 10,000 of the world's most elite killers. These men were survivors. The captured men were marched east, far east, deep into the unknown territories of Central Asia, where the Parthians forced them to guard the eastern frontier, acting as a buffer against the nomadic people who lived in Central Asia at the time. Imagine being a Roman legionnaire. You were born in the hills of Italy. Now, you are 4,000 miles from home, guarding a border for your enemies. You realized no one is coming to save you. To stay alive, you do the only thing you know how to do. You sell your sword. Years passed, and for 17 years, these lost Romans became the ultimate mercenaries of the Silk Road. Even in exile, they drilled, they maintained formations, they taught their sons how to fight as Romans. They moved further and further east, following the highest bidder, until they encountered a power they never knew existed: the Han Dynasty of China. This is where the legend becomes fact. In 36 BC, Chinese general Shen Tang marched west to crush a rebel named Zhizhi, a warlord in modern-day Kazakhstan. The Chinese chroniclers recorded something that baffled them. They described enemy soldiers guarding the city like no army they had ever seen. They formed a living wall, shields locked, advancing like machines. Chinese warfare relied on mobility, archers, and chaos. This was different. This was order. A wall of men, no panic, no retreat. Even under arrow fire, they advanced. No one in the east used the turtle formation. These weren't nomads. These were the 1,000 survivors of Crassus's lost legions. This was something different and terrifying. The Chinese attacked with crossbows. The shield wall held. They attacked with cavalry. The wall turned. Only when the formation was surrounded did it finally collapse. The Chinese won, but they never forget what they saw. The Chinese were so impressed by their discipline that after they won the battle, they didn't execute these Roman soldiers. They did something much more interesting. They relocated the survivors. Not enslaved, not executed, but gave them their own territory. They settled them in a border town to protect China. They named the town Li-Chien. In ancient Chinese, Li-Chien was the word used to describe Rome. Here's where it gets chilling. For centuries, in this remote village of Li-Chien, the people look different. They speak Mandarin, they worship their ancestors, and they farm the yellow earth. But look closer. Some are taller than average. Some have blonde hair, others have green or blue eyes, an unusual facial structure, and for centuries, they've told a story that historians called a legend. Until now. For centuries, this was just a theory. But in 2005, scientists arrived in Li-Chien. They took DNA samples from the villagers. The results were staggering. Nearly 56% of the DNA in several villagers was Caucasian, not nomadic, not Mongolian, but European. Chinese authorities were cautious. Western historians were skeptical. No Roman helmets were found. No Latin inscriptions. But ask yourself this: what survives after 2,000 years of war, migration, and empire collapse? Rome itself barely remembers its legion. So what chance did these men have, lost beyond the edge of the world? The ghosts of Rome never left the Gobi Desert. They didn't die in the sand. They blended into the soil. Their shields are gone. Their swords have rusted away, but their eyes still tell the story of a march that never ended. So the question isn't, did Romans reach China? The question is, how many other stories were never written because the men who lived them never made it home? History isn't just a list of dates. It's a series of impossible survivals. If 10,000 Romans can vanish into China and leave their mark 2,000 years later, what else is hidden in plain sight. If you found our stories fascinating, please like, subscribe, and support us. All the links are in the description below. Thank you very much for your support.